because the stream itself will be a little bit behind what we're actually doing. It's pretty safe to assume that
So are we live, like right now?
it's going to be right at 1 though.
Oh. I think we're live. Are we live? Let me get the recipe. Are we live? Are you going to do an introduction? Hi, everybody. Shannon, are you going to do an introduction real quick? It's just
It went off.
It went off. So maybe it's not live yet. Is it live?
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Nakwe time, midday here on the beautiful Isabella Indian Reservation. We're coming to you live from the Nimke Wellness Center Public Health Kitchen. And today we have with us Master Anishinaabe chefs, Mama Mary Graveret, and her amazing fry bread champion daughter, Glenna Jenkins. So give a shout out.
Hi.
We'd like to say miigwech to all of you for logging on and for those that are watching us from all parts of Turtle Island. And this wonderful parched sweet corn making virtual demonstration is brought to you by the Saginaw Chippewa Tribal Historic Preservation Office under the leadership of Marcella Haddon. So we'd like to give a shout out to our Tribal Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service for supporting this office in historic preservation and cultural revitalization initiatives. So at this time, we're going to turn it over to our master chefs for a parched corn soup making virtual demonstration. And in our language, sweet corn is mandaman. So let's turn it over to these two sweet corn ladies. And they're going to start walking you through the recipe. And Glenna?
All right. Well, before we get started, we want to make sure that we have everything that we need. In your packages that you picked up, everybody has 6 ears of corn. Then you have your buffalo. Some of you guys got roast and some of you guys got stew meat. And then we have an onion and a large potato. And if you make this later on, you can use 2 small potatoes. And then you have your beef broth and your pinto beans. And then you will also need something to set corn in on the side. You'll need a cutting board for your meat and a cutting board for your vegetables. And you will also need a Dutch oven and a baking sheet so we can parch the corn. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and you guys are going to follow me, and I'm going to have Mary work on another pan of soup that I've already started earlier before we went live. So she's going to finish that off while you guys follow the steps with me. You ready, Mom? Mary?
You mad at me?
No. If I was
You're
mad.
gonna be doing everything.
I'm not making you do everything, Mom. Okay. You're not. Stop. Don't pay attention to her. All right, so let's get your cutting board and your buffalo out, and we're going to start with chopping that up. You can dice it in small pieces, as big as you want or as little as you want, and I'll give everybody about 5 minutes to chop it up.
Mama Mary, how long have you been cooking? And what's your favorite thing to cook for your family and loved ones? I know my answer. She makes the best bean soup.
Mary Lou. Mom.
What's your favorite thing to cook, Mama Mary?
What'd she say?
What's your favorite thing to cook?
What's your favorite food?
Take your mask
Food,
off.
she says.
Just about anything.
She actually makes the best pork chops and mushroom soup. But everybody else loves her bean soup.
Glenna, how long have you been cooking with your mom?
I usually don't cook with her. But we do actually. How many years, Mom? Since I was young. I was probably a teenager when I started helping her out. And then she assists us with our powwow stand every year as well. When you cut your buffalo up, you guys may come across a few pieces of fat, and you're welcome to trim that off, or you can include it in it, but I usually cut that piece away and throw it away.
Or you could boil it up for your namoosh, your dogs.
This is a lot of meat. So,
Glenna, what do you think about while you're preparing food? I know that some of our elders and grandmas always talk about putting good medicine and thoughts and laughter into the food.
what do I think about?
Yeah.
I don't really know, I guess. I just hope that whatever it is I'm preparing, that people like it. I'm kind of picky too sometimes. If I don't like how my food looks or tastes myself, I always want to toss it out. People always tell me don't. Right, Mom? My mom will eat it, huh? You'll eat my food?
Hmm?
You eat my food? She's like Mikey. So everybody just about have their roast all chopped up, hopefully, because I'm coming to the final stretches of mine. Before you, so once we get the roast all chopped up, we're gonna actually brown it in our Dutch oven. So I'll be moving this over to the stove here in just a minute.
So Glenna, what do you think of the recent news of that buffalo protecting that mother and calf?
I think it's really cool. I actually got commissioned to do a buffalo piece, a beaded buffalo medallion because of that.
Oh.
I'm kind of excited to do it.
I know that we've been watching at Z-Wing all the art and creations that are coming from that incident with that wild buffalo and Auntie. I think it was an Auntie cow. So Aunties are fierce, even in our wild animal world. Aunties are very protective, and I know that there were some news reports where they misgendered that buffalo and called it a male, but we know that it was a female Auntie cow that was protecting that little baby from that lady encroaching too close into their family. So while we're cooking with buffalo today, it's always good to think about, think about our wild animals and all of the good medicines of corn and beans that help sustain us. So I'm thinking of that wild buffalo herd just trying to live peacefully in their own little environment and trying to protect themselves.
All right. Hopefully everybody has the roast chopped up because I've already skipped a step in this whole process. So we're gonna back up just a little bit, but it's all good. Nobody's perfect, not even me. We're gonna start peel your ears of corn so that way we can start parching this. supposed to do this first.
How many ears of corn are you going to parch?
4.
4 ears of corn?
Yes. But you can go ahead and peel all 6 right now. I knew I was doing this.
We'd like to acknowledge Papa's Pumpkin Patch, just down the road from our reservation. Papa's Pumpkin Patch provided the sweet corn for us. And they're always good about making sure we have some of the traditional foods we need when our community gardens do run out of squash and beans and corn. So shout out to Papa's Pumpkin Patch. And also to Pole's Meat in Clare, Michigan for providing the buffalo. So if you're looking for buffalo roasts or buffalo stew meat, steaks, ground buffalo, hit up Pole's Meat, P-O-H-L-S, Pole's Meats out of Clare.
Come on, Mary Lou.
Had some breath before. And I gotta cut this up when I do the corn. Put it in that cup.
And we'd like to acknowledge, some of the comments that have been posted with the announcement of this cooking show and the sharing of the recipe. We'd like to acknowledge those comments, but so first we'd like to acknowledge the late David Chenaquet, Little Traverse Bay Band of Ottawa Indians citizen who passed this April. This was one of his specialties, parched corn soup, and he learned it from his mom and his grandma and all those that came before them. And we're thankful that he shared this recipe with his daughter Carly Chenaquet, who's now taking on the tradition of cooking this beautiful sweet parched corn soup dish. And miigwech and shout out to Carly Chenaquet for sharing this recipe that her dad gave her with us.
Okay. If you guys can remove your corn from the cob, we're going to do it off of 4 pieces, and hopefully everybody has their oven preheated to 350, but if I can actually get you guys to turn your ovens up to like 375, so that way we can speed the process up a little bit with parching the corn, that'd be great. And remove it off of 4 kernels and then place it in the baking sheet, so that way we can get this in the oven.
Do you put butter or oil or mid-air baking grease on your pan?
No, it's just a ungreased baking sheet.
So some of the other comments we're thankful for, there's some folks around Indian country who use kidney beans instead of pinto beans. So if you're a fan of pinto beans, by all means use that. But if you use kidney beans, that's another option. And last week, Marcella Haddon, the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer who's sponsoring this virtual cooking demonstration, she tested a batch and the recipe at her home last week. And she added rutabagas and some carrots to her parched corn soup. So if there's other things that you would like to add that are some of your favorites, there's really no way to ruin this meal with some of those things that you can add, those other root vegetables and beans.
You can also change the meat too. If you don't want to use buffalo or you can't afford buffalo because buffalo is a little more pricey, then you're welcome to use beef. You can use chicken, and instead of using a beef broth, use a chicken broth as well, and just change it up a little bit. And we were talking about other options yesterday, and we even mentioned doing ham and turkey. So we thought maybe like do a ham. It'll be probably taste similar to like a boiled dinner. My mom makes an awesome boiled dinner too. Right, Mary?
She's at a deaf side.
How would you think ring bologna or Spam would?
I probably wouldn't, but some to each their own. Would you put Spam? Do this with Spam?
Spam? Never about Spam.
Would you use Spam to make the soup instead of ham?
Oh, Nope.
So when we do the does everybody? Oh, I wish I knew. Hopefully everybody has their corn already off the cob. I'm like on my last piece. We're gonna put aside 2 ears of corn, which will be roughly 1 cup, and then the rest will be parched, and we'll put that in the oven. And once we put that in the oven, we're gonna stir it like every 10 minutes, so that way it doesn't burn, and we keep an eye on it. And when we parch it, we're gonna parch it until it's like a golden brown, orange, yellow, brown. It's like a brownish color, I guess. All right, so let's take your corn and you're gonna spread it so it's in a flat layer, and we're gonna place it in the oven. All right. Yeah, I made a mess.
That's a good washcloth.
Because they're
Just a paper towel.
my mom is so demanding sometimes. All right.
Leonard, do you always clean as you go when you cook, or do you leave it a mess for your daughters or anyone else to clean up after you?
I leave it for my mom. But stop, Mary. We make a great team. So let's, while your corn is being parched in the oven, you should also have your buffalo on the stove browning. So we're gonna kind of just take turns stirring each of those. And this right here, I'm about ready to drop this corn inside of the soup that I started earlier. And this is a sample of what the parched corn is going to look like once we have it all dried out. Hopefully everybody can see it. Is it showing up? Okay.
So Glenna, the parched corn is completely dry, correct?
Yes.
And that you would be able to store that for any cooking that you may want to do later in the fall or winter?
Yes, you can store it, put it in a baggie, or if you have a container, you can put it in a container.
Like a glass container or jar?
Yes, like maybe a mason jar, something that closes up. I've also read that some people use this kind of like a trail mix. And they'll just season the parched corn, and they'll add sugar or salt to the corn when it's done baking while it's still warm, and they eat it as like a trail mix.
So you could probably get some buffalo dry jerky, huh? Make a little protein trail mix with that for your long car rides.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure if you can probably get all sorts of stuff, and if you prefer the sweet one, you can probably get some dried fruits and cranberries and all that good stuff to add in it too. So again, my mom is cutting up, or Mary is cutting up stuff that'll go into the pot that I started before we went live. And I'm working on cutting up stuff for the pan that we're making together. So while we're waiting for the buffalo to brown and the corn to get parched, we're gonna go ahead and cut up the onions. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you guys that. So get your onions peeled and let's get those chopped up. And then you'll also chop up your potato because we'll be adding those here shortly. This one has a lot of buffalo.
So would you recommend going now to get as much sweet corn as you can and just start drying it if you'd like to store it for this fall or winter?
I would, just because sweet corn is a seasonal item, and it's probably going to taste the best right now versus getting it later on. And if you wanted to make the parched corn soup and you guys don't have the sweet corn ahead of time, you can also use like frozen sweet corn in the bag, and you can pull that out, let it defrost, and just put that in the oven and follow the same steps that we're following now. So you can always, there's other alternatives instead of using fresh corn on the cob. Or you can get the frozen corn on the cobs and do the same thing with that. Look at Mary making a mess.
Holy.
So my, I have the buffalo on medium heat, so that way it can kind of brown a little easy. I got the oven turned up to 375. I don't think they have any. So when we pull out the corn, it's going to take a little while, but all we're going to do is kind of do this. It'll probably stick to your pan a little, but just use a spoon, scrape it around, and you're going to, it actually smells really good as it's parching. So we're just going to keep stirring it like this, make sure it's not sticking. Put it back in the oven and try to spread it out as thin as you can. Pull it back out in another 10 minutes. I do find that if you have an electric stove, it's going to take a little longer to parch it than if you have a gas stove. And I'm working with an electric stove right now, so I may crank that heat up in just a little bit. So I know that we had about 35, 36 people register for this class that came and picked up supplies. And we had a few that were out of town that did not pick up the supplies. So we want to just acknowledge that there's a lot of you guys out there watching us do this. And we're grateful for the opportunity given to us to pass this along. And again, like Shannon mentioned, the recipe came from Dave Shenaniquit, and his daughter Carly shared it with Z-Wing, so that way we can offer this opportunity to everybody. And we have people of all ages came and picked it up. I said I would give a shout out to Ricky. He's 14 years old. He's one of the sons to one of the members that picked up the supplies yesterday, and I said I'd give him a shout out, so hopefully he's out there helping his mom. And again, Mary.
shout out too to Cindy Fox Star, all the way from the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. She's logged on and she picked up her supplies probably at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, but bonjour Cindy in the Chicago community, Native community.
All right, so my buffalo is all brown. Hopefully everybody else's is. Once your buffalo gets browned, we're gonna add the broth with some water. I added about 6 cups of water to the 1 can of broth to the mix in the pan with the buffalo. So we'll go ahead and do that right now.
We'd like to also acknowledge the elders at Ondawad, our
At that corner.
assisted living and unassisted living facility just down the road across the street. So bonjour and miigwech tribal elders at Ondawad for joining us in this virtual cooking class.
I don't know, I'm assuming that they can see from You could help later.
My
So again,
hand's
I've
too
added about
small.
6 cups of.
My hand's too small, I need bigger hands. Come on.
Or maybe it's the gloves, Mama Mary.
I have that all over the place in this.
But I have to say, you're fashionable, you two. You have matching gloves on. You've coordinated with your shirts for your world debut, your cooking class debut.
So, I don't know if it's been 10 minutes or not. So again, we're gonna, every so often, I don't keep a timer, and I usually don't measure anything when I cook. I never measure, I just throw it all together. Even if it's a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese, I just pour milk in it, don't I?
Oh,
I don't measure nothing. My mom will tell you I got soupy macaroni and cheese, don't I? So, we'll give that about 10 more minutes. I'm gonna crank this up. Alright. I just turned the oven up to 400 on mine. I'm just kind of trying to rush the corn just because I put it in after I chopped up the buffalo, so I'm trying to make up a little bit of time for everybody. So if I can get everybody to adjust their oven dials as well, so that way we can get this corn dried out. We're just gonna have to watch it a little more often so that way it doesn't burn, because it will burn. I did some trying to hurry up and parch some the other day, and I was burning it and not realizing it. I'm stealing a little bit of your corn.
Glenn, I need to make a correction.
What?
The buffalo came from Pole Bison, P-O-H-L, Pole Bison out of Rosebush, Michigan.
Oh, a rose bush.
Yeah, Pole Bison.
Okay. All right. Our other soup is coming along just fine too.
do the potato, this one?
You could probably start. Is that one mine or is that one yours?
Yours.
Did you?
I put-
Sure. Did you already put the potato in there? Okay. It's okay. Yeah, you can chop that one up while we're waiting.
Huh?
You can chop that one up while we're waiting. We just gotta wait for the parched corn. How's everyone's corn looking out there? Is it turning brown? I wish I could like interact with everybody. So I knew. But it's okay.
What
Huh?
turns brown?
The corn will turn brown. Huh? I think she just has selective hearing. I'm gonna let the world know that.
Taking a bit of cake.
No. All right, so I did. All right, so we're just kind of waiting. Everybody should have their buffalo brown with the beef stew, or the beef broth and the water in it. We can go ahead and add our onion, and no, we don't want to add that yet. Never mind. Just sit back and wait. I forgot my recipe, so I'm trying to play it by ear. Tara's probably at home laughing at me. Let's get this corn stirred. Mine is starting to dry out a little bit. You can see the smaller pieces are starting to turn. It's getting a little bit smaller. So it's what's happening is like all of the juice from the corn has kind of got to evaporate from each kernel. So it takes a little bit of time, but you'll slowly see it start turning.
Glenna, we'd like to acknowledge that this parched corn soup is just not a common and traditional meal for Anishinaabe, our relatives out east. So those tribes belonging to the Six Nations Confederacy also have their own version of parched corn soup. One of my Facebook friends, Lawrence Wheeler, he's a math teacher out in Seneca, Cattaraugus, Seneca country, Cattaraugus, New York. I just saw him over the weekend with his family parching corn. And then Steve Pigo, our own former tribal chief, he and his lovely wife May and sister-in-law Angie Francisco were on Facebook posting pictures of them outside parching their corn. So there's a way to parch corn outside as well, just over an open flame and get a skillet, and you can parch it outside. So they were doing some parching of sweet corn down at the Bradley Indian Settlement where they live last week. And then I also saw some Menominee friends parching corn over in Wisconsin last weekend. And they were parching it much like we parch wild rice. So they had an open fire flame with a kettle, and they had a paddle and were moving the rice around inside the cast iron kettle over an open flame. So there are very different ways that tribes, our people, are honoring this tradition of parched corn and sweet corn and preparing it for their friends and family and for their community.
So while we're letting the corn parch and our soup start to boil, we should already have our onion chopped up, and we're going to chop up the potato, which is what Mary Lou is working on right now. I'm married. Mary is her name. I'm sorry, Mom. Don't look at me like
You meant to.
that. Her name is Mary. She hates Mary Lou. She hates Mary Lou. You want to dice them kind of small. The other day when I made the soup, I had my mom dice the potatoes a little big. And they took forever to get done. So the smaller you can dice your potatoes, the better it is. Little bite-sized pieces would be perfect.
Well, it was bite-sized if you had a big mouth.
So let's go ahead and give this corn in the oven another stir. I don't know, can you see that?
Maybe then I turn it up.
So if you, I don't know if you can tell, but you can kind of see that it's they're starting to turn. So we'll just keep stirring it so it doesn't burn. Once it starts drying out, it'll just kind of, you'll be able to shake the pan and it'll just kind of turn on its own. Mary's a pro at cutting up potatoes.
What?
You like to cut up potatoes.
I do? Okay.
She's a pro. What? Just cut the potatoes on mine.
So Glenna, what's going on September 18th in the same kitchen at 1 o'clock?
Wild rice casserole with Tanya Jackson and Steve
Dave Fox.
Fox. They'll be right here. A lot of you guys signed up for that class as well. Oh, it's a wild rice and buffalo casserole. Yum. I never knew anything about wild rice until I started working at Zebra Wing, and I was asked to prepare it, and I really didn't know what I was doing. They said just cook it a little bit longer than regular rice, so that's what I did. But now I make wild rice soup, and I'll do casseroles and whatnot, and my mom will cut up the potatoes for it.
Because she loves cutting potatoes.
Yeah. She does a lot of dicing and chopping for us, especially for powwows.
Especially what?
For powwows.
Oh.
Anybody that knows my mom has that look, right?
Hmm?
I know. Should I scream?
No, because
Okay.
they never scream back.
Hopefully everybody's getting their onions and their potatoes diced.
We're not ready for it yet anyways.
No, we're not, but they need to get it prepared.
Thought you wanted it right now.
No.
Oops.
So let's go ahead and check that corn again. We'll be doing a lot of that. And you can see now the kernels are starting to get a little bit smaller, so that means it's finally starting to dry out. Now we really have to watch it because with the temperatures up a little higher, It'll burn a lot quicker if we don't keep it stirred.
Glenn, we'd like to acknowledge, again, our Tribal Historic Preservation Office and our Historic Preservation Officer, Marcella Haddon. And it's through her office and funding through the National Park Service that we're able to provide this opportunity and the opportunity on September 18th for the wild rice and buffalo casserole cooking demonstration. And Marcella, in our Tribal Historic Preservation Office, wanted to provide opportunities for families to stay home and stay safe and cook together while learning one of our cultural dishes. You know, it's important that during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic that we limit our exposure when we go out and about, and dining in restaurants inside is proven to be a high-risk environment when it comes to some of the reports that are coming in regarding people who are contracting the virus. So we're encouraging our folks to stay home and to cook at home together rather than making the decision to go into an enclosed restaurant with their family. So we'd like to acknowledge and say miigwech to Marcella for providing these opportunities to cook at home with your family and be safe. So again, on September 18th, we'll have another live cooking virtual demonstration with Tanya Jackson and Steve Dayfox. And they are going to provide instruction on how to make buffalo and wild rice casserole. So those of you who are here and near to the reservation, the Tribal Historic Preservation Office in Zeebwing will be offering another bag of ingredients for that show on September 18th. And you'll be able to pick up your bag of ingredients 2 days before the show. So September 16th and September 17th will once again create a curbside pickup for you if you're registered to participate in the virtual cooking class on September 18th. So that's another opportunity to learn an amazing Anishinaabe ancestral dish.
Yeah, my mother told me the other day when we was making it at home, she said, diced potatoes. I said, like I do for the bean soup? And she said, no, bigger. I said, how bigger? She said, bigger. I said, okay.
So you cut the potato in half and threw it in the pot?
I should have cut it in parts.
Yeah.
Because you see how small I cut the potatoes for the bean soup. They're tiny.
Mm-hmm.
If no one has had my mom's bean soup, I highly recommend it. We get people that'll drop off hams and a bag of beans at our house to make bean soup. We won't say who though. So again, let's check our corn. This is the biggest step that we have to worry about right now. In between, we're gonna work on cutting up the potatoes and the onion.
That
And you can see it starting to turn, hopefully. And you can tell it's starting to dry out when you do this, and it'll like kind of give itself in the single layer, and that's what you want when you're parching the corn. So we'll put this back in the oven. And we probably start out with about 4 cups, 2 cups maybe of corn before it's done. And once it gets all parched, it's gonna probably be about a cup of corn once we get it all dried out and ready to go for our soup.
Wow.
So I got some feedback coming in. This is from somebody who's cooking along with you. And they said, quote, "They are so cute. Glenna's a natural."
Oh, thanks.
Glenna, were you nervous, huh?
I am. I'm very nervous. That's probably why I messed up already from the beginning.
You didn't mess up.
Well, I didn't really mess up, but we had to get the corn in the oven because that's the longest step. So I skipped it. I skipped around. That's how I do everything. Right. She's so funny.
It happens.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
All right, so we're just kind of waiting on the corn right now. And again, if you don't have access to buffalo or you wanted to try something else, you can do beef roast. That's what I use when I make it at home. My children kind of curl their nose up at buffalo, so we'll use beef roast. I have yet to try it with chicken, but I'm going to try it with chicken and do chicken broth instead. And then I'm kind of eager to try it with a smoked picnic and some drippings, because that's what we use for the boiled dinner. So I think it'll be kind of similar if we just add all our vegetables in it and used parched corn, or either I can just get my mom to make some boiled dinner and I'll throw parched corn in her pot when she's making it. Maybe that might be the way to go. Then it won't be then it'll be rather easy to make.
You could probably use venison too.
Oh yes, I didn't think about that. Venison, or we can do turkey even. Turkey's actually considered wild game, in case you didn't know that, and if you wanted to kind of stick to the wild game when you're using the parched corn, because those both are sacred foods, so you can do that. I don't know. What else? Any other suggestions? My mom said try Spam in it.
I did not.
You did at the beginning of the show.
You
I
asked,
asked-
you asked me, would you use Spam? And I said,
You said yes. Yes.
no.
Yes. You said yes, Mary Lou.
No.
All right. Now she changes her mind. Don't use Spam. What about
You'll
bologna?
use Spam if it's fried.
Oh,
Not
you're-
boiled.
So what about ring bologna?
Who?
Ring bologna. Shannon thought maybe you could do ring bologna
A little fried ring bologna.
with the corn.
My dad used to call that Indian steak.
Okay. So my corn is finally starting to turn. Can you see the little pieces getting brown? Oh, can you see it? So we got maybe about, let's say maybe about another 10-15 minutes on our corn. Is everybody else's corn starting to look like this? If it's not starting to turn brown on you, let's crank the oven up just a tad bit more. I got mine turned up to 400. Other than that, we're waiting. So, anything else you want to talk about, Mom?
Huh?
Do you want to talk about anything else? How many of you guys out there cook with your mother? I love cooking with my mom. She's a blast. I slave her at powwows. We have a powwow stand, and we set up all summer long, and my mom actually works really hard. She usually cooks all of our burger, our hamburgers. She does our Spam burgers. She does the taco meat for the Indian tacos.
The refried beans.
Yeah, the refried beans. So my mom's slaving in the back behind the scenes. Not many people see her. So,
Yeah, they do. It's in
Okay,
the top of my head.
all right. Well, you guys see her in the back then. So she's a behind the scenes cook, and I do the fried bread. We missed the powwows this year, didn't we, Mom?
Yeah.
See, we did. We love it. Right?
All right.
So everybody got keeping an eye on their buffalo mix too on the stove. Make sure that that's not sticking, over boiling or anything like that. But it should be simmering, so that way when our corn does get done, we can just add that and get that going.
Maybe you two should think about doing a drive-by pop-up food stand. How about Michigan Indian Day on Friday, September 25th?
Actually, we may. I actually kind of thought about doing it tomorrow, but I don't know if I might have other plans. I just plans to be lazy at home for the weekend. But so my corn is really starting to turn. Hopefully everybody else's corn is kind of turning at the same speed as mine. I just got burned. We kiss it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll give that about another 5-10 minutes.
That's fine. Right.
I know, there ain't nothing to put it in water, Mom. There's that one. Put it in there. So we're going to put the potatoes in a little bit of water just because the starch on the potatoes is actually starting to turn them while we're waiting. My mom jumped the gun and peeled the potato way early. Are you over there talking about me, Mom?
What? You were the one that told me to start cutting them.
Alright.
My mom actually done it too early.
All right.
That's all she did.
See how alright.
Ooh.
Time to check the corn again.
Better.
So I've been told that if the corn will taste a little better, like the darker you can let it get, the better it'll taste. It'll have more of a flavor to it. You can, as Shannon mentioned too, you can also parch your corn like over an open fire. I think I want to get some corn and try that and try to dry it out a little bit while it's on the cob over an open fire, and then I can pluck it off the cob, and so I have whole kernels, and then save some for powwow, because this might be a new dish that we serve at powwow. I'll have my mom slaving in the back making that every Saturday morning before powwow gets going. She's agreeing, right? So I gotta do the fried bread, Mom. All right, maybe not.
You
Well,
better
Mary-
eat them all first.
Yeah. Mary, you raised some amazing cooks with your children. You've got Glenna and your son Craig. He's an excellent chef. And Tina.
Yeah.
And now that the corn is starting to get dried out, we want to watch it a little more often, just because it'll burn rather quickly. It'll start browning. See how this is turning very brown now that it's starting to get dried out. So I'm saying maybe another, I keep saying another 5-10 minutes, right? That's how everything, another 5 minutes. So we'll try it for maybe another 5 minutes again. That's probably not too bad. So once we get the corn parched up into the right texture or color that it needs to be, we're going to add that directly into our soup where we have the broth and the water and the buffalo kind of simmering right now. So once we get the corn parched, we're going to add that to the soup. Then you're going to cook that for about 45 minutes to an hour. Let that cook on medium heat, and then we'll add the onion, the potatoes, and the unparched corn at that time, along with the can of pinto beans. And then you'll let that cook for about another, actually I'm going to back up. I'm going to change that. I'm going to stop. We'll add the parched corn, and we're going to add the onion and the pinto beans, and we're going to let those simmer on medium heat for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then we will add the unparched corn and the potatoes at that time and let them simmer for about roughly a half hour until the potatoes and the corn is done. And then you guys will be ready to eat your soup. So let's see how this corn is looking in a couple more minutes, and then I'm thinking we may be able to add it to our soup. Soup. It's all the same, right? Is there a difference?
Stew is thicker.
Yeah, I was waiting for her to see. She knew. I was testing her. All right. So my corn is just about there. That should be good, right? So I have a lot of dark pieces mixed in here. So what I'm going to do, hopefully everybody else, some other people can experience it. I don't know if you guys could see this. Can you see it, Shannon? All right, this is kind of, what do you want me to do? The camera's right there, they can control it. All right, so everybody kind of see the color. So now it's dried out. You can let it go a little longer if you want. Usually I would let it just go a little bit longer, but because we're limited on time, I'm going to go ahead and dump this in this pot of soup over here. All right, so that's done. All right, so now we got the parched corn in there, and we'll let this simmer for roughly 45 minutes, and then we'll add the rest of the ingredients. Actually, right now I'm gonna go ahead and add the beans and the onions to this mix. There's not really a right time or a wrong time to add your ingredients. It's all about the texture that you would like it to be. If you prefer to have your onions a little raw, you can add them last. Some people like crunchy onions in their food. I prefer cooked onions. So we'll stir this up and we'll just let this simmer. Like I said, for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to add our unparched corn and our potatoes to it, and then we'll let it simmer for about another half hour, and then you guys are ready to eat. And this other pot here, we started before the show, and this is about done. So what I'm going to do is move this over. We don't have anything to show. I'm going to set it right there. So I don't know if you guys could see this. Oh, maybe I can stick it in there. So this one is done. And we started this ahead of time. So I'm going to scoop some in this clear bowl so that way you can kind of see it. Huh? So I'm not going to add a lot of, can you see it like this? Actually, if you look at this, you'll see the parched corn kind of swelled back up, and it's a little bigger and it's darker in color. There's regular corn, there's the meat and onion, potatoes all mixed in, and there's a little bit of broth. And this right here is your parched corn soup, ladies and gentlemen. And that will be it.